We're going to start with our opening song, number 191 in your hymnal. Lisa will play it once before we start singing. Now I recall my childhood. Be seated. But you don't have to be. We allow free choice here. Welcome on this beautiful Mother's Day. I know Mother's Day, I've been reading quite a bit because of this service, can be very frightful for some people because they're had difficulties with various mothers. But I want to celebrate all mothers, the ones we had difficulty with, and the ones who loved us so much it was almost painful sometimes to break away. The mother you had, the mother you wished you had, the mother you hope you were, the mother of the person you may have met as a stranger who became like a mother to you. The father who was a mother, the mother who was a father. The fathers who are together being mothers and the mothers who are together being fathers. And I want to celebrate all of them, and I want people to be able to remember them with joy, love, and tears sometimes. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice, which we lovingly call UUCOV. Is there anyone here today for the very first time? If you would be willing to stand up and tell us your name. Thank you, Henry, and I'm sure you feel like a new person every morning you wake up. Is there anyone who is heading north this next week and would like to say goodbye? Would you stand up or just say goodbye from the... Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. Well, all I can say is hurry back. And the secret is we have even more fun while you're gone. So I want you to say, keep us in your thoughts and visit us online whenever you have a chance. We accept everyone here. We don't care who you are, where you've been, who you know and who you don't know. We don't care what you're wearing, what political party you want, and what TV shows are your favorite. We are welcoming, and that's about it. Bill Reynolds will be giving you our announcements today.
Thanks, Pam. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to have my wishes for a happy Mother's Day to all the moms here and at home. And I would say yet to be, but looking out at the audience, I'm not sure there'll be too many more moms to happen. First announcement, today, May 8th at 3 p.m., there'll be a video documentary about Pete Seeger, hosted by Bob Killian. $10 at the door, proceeds to go to the All Faiths Food Bank. Also this afternoon, there'll be a Buddhist Wisdom Sunday in Asta Linder, hosted by Jim Pikarski. Tomorrow, May 9th, there'll be a silent sitting and walking group meditation at 1 p.m. in Asta Linder and on Zoom. And I believe the Zoom links are on the calendar. Tuesday, May 10th at 10 a.m., an ARE moderator meeting will be on Zoom. All are welcome to attend. Thursday, May 12th at 10:30 a.m. in Asta Linder, there'll be a grief support group, and at 1 p.m. on Zoom, join the book club as they discuss The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. And finally, on Saturday at 10 a.m., join Monksan here in the sanctuary as on every Saturday. And at 3 p.m., Jalori Crane in Asta Linder and on Zoom for a I'm probably pronouncing this incorrectly, Targar meditation and discussion group. Did I pronounce it correctly? Okay, thanks. Check out the calendar for a complete list of all announcements. And I'd like to introduce Barbara Buren, who will have something to offer us.
Good morning. I am Barbara Buren, Social Justice Team Leader. We're going to be passing the basket for this month's special offering, which goes to Good Samaritan Pharmacy and Health Services. Good Samaritan Pharmacy and Health Services provides medical services to uninsured, financially needy members of our community. Over 30% of Sarasota families have income below 200% of the poverty line and can be devastated by one medical crisis. Good Samaritan Pharmacy and Health Services provides free access to prescription and over-the-counter medications, as well as access to physician services, including diagnostic testing. Even during the pandemic, they continue to provide prescription medication and virtual doctor visits to both new and pre-existing patients. They are a 501c3 located in Nokomis, staffed almost entirely by volunteers. Please make checks payable to UUCOV with Good Samaritan in the memo line. And thank you for your generosity.
And Lisa will play us our prelude. much. That was beautiful. A call to worship. Corinthians 1. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. And we will have the lighting of the chalice by Bill.
We light this chalice for mothers and mothering, to celebrate those who have taken on the task of nurturing, to celebrate those who have nourished the light of truth and compassion in growing minds and hearts, to celebrate those who have committed time, money, energy to the growth of others in this world. We light this chalice to celebrate and hold dear this flame of love.
And I have. Bill, I think you took my paper.
Just wing it. Let's see how good you are at faith.
Yeah, without the order of service, we can have a disaster. We now invite the children to come up. I'm going to tell them a story. I would love to get down on the floor, but we'd spend the other hour having me on. So this is a story about being a mother, but being an unusual mother. And it's a book a lot of people don't want to read. So anyway, currently this is a story. Currently, is it on? Currently. I was worried about this. I don't know why. Currently, this is a book that some people don't want you to read, and it's called And Tango Makes Three, and it's a true story of two penguins that lived in the zoo in Central Park in New York City. And penguins will mate usually at a certain time of the year. They will make a couple, and they gather rocks to form a nest. But there were two penguins who were both boys, named Roy and I can't remember the other one's name. Silo, Roy and Silo. And they didn't find another penguin to make a nest with until the two of them met. And Roy and Silo were both boy penguins. But they hung around together and they swam together and they liked each other. And they noticed that the other penguins were forming a nest, so they made a nest. And they gathered all their rocks. And then they noticed that the other penguins were laying eggs. But neither Roy nor Silo could make an egg. So they found a rock and they put it in the middle of the nest. And they sat on that, but it didn't hatch for some reason, but it didn't hatch. But then the zookeeper noticed that there was one couple who had laid 2 eggs, and penguins can't take care of 2 eggs. So he took one of the eggs and he gave it to Roy and Silo. And they looked at it for a while, and then they decided, well, you know, why not? And they put it in the middle of the nest. And Roy and Silo sat on the egg and turned the egg to keep it warm on every side. And when it was time, they felt the vibration in the egg, and the egg cracked open, and there was Tango. The zookeeper had named it Tango because, you know, it takes 2 to tango. And Tango lived at the zoo, and people came to see Tango. And it just was another family at the zoo, because there were families of humans who came to see the animals, and the animals had families, because there were always baby monkeys. And now they got to see Silo and Roy and little Tango. And they were all chin-strap penguins, which are penguins that look like they're wearing a hat because they have a little line, dark line under their chins. And they lived for many years in the New York City Zoo in Central Park. And these 2 gentlemen wrote this book. And I hope you enjoyed the story of Tango and his 2 daddies. And I'm telling you this on Mother's Day because parenting is parenting, let's be honest. So there it is. And happy Mother's Day. And where are you headed now? Where are you going? That's right. So we will sing you off. And I say, have a very good day. And what is it we used to say here all the time? What is it we used to say here all the time? You're going to have fun and learn something. And that's true every day. You have fun and learn something. Okay. And now we're going to do Celebrations in Sorrow. And my good friend Richard Palmer is going to bring the mic around. If anyone has a sorrow, could you please raise your hand and he will bring the mic to you? Let's do celebrations, I guess. Okay. I got that backwards. Let's celebrate first.
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, folks. My name is Robert. And I just want to personally invite you to our celebration this afternoon of the life of Pete Seeger. We're going to play the award-winning video of The Power of Song. And we're also going to do some music and sing along some of his most iconic songs. It's $10, as was mentioned this morning, and you can pay at the door. And the proceeds, the net proceeds, will all go to the All Faiths Food Bank for that. I knew Pete Seeger for over 40 years. I worked with him. I sang with him. I recorded with him. I sailed with him on the Hudson River many, many times. And he was a most magnificent person, one of the most honest human beings that I've ever known. And if you haven't seen the video, it's a wonderful, wonderful video showing the life of somebody who lived his life with integrity and grace and service to humanity. And he was a Unitarian, and he did sign the book in Manhattan at All Souls. And I hope you all come. And just one more thing, if anybody is willing to help me out, my wife was supposed to come and collect admissions, but her flight from Rochester was canceled yesterday by Allegiant, so she'll be here till tomorrow. So if anybody's willing to help out with that, I'll be out in the Lanai after the service, and I hope we'll see you later. Thank you.
Give you a break. Hi, I'm Jim Willett. Lisa and I celebrated an anniversary yesterday. 11 years ago and 4 grandchildren ago, we got married in this very sanctuary. One was already there. We'll call it 5. Anyhow, that was 11 years ago, right here, with a shout out to eHarmony.
Any more? Oh, Rose.
I'm Rosalie Danbury. I had a wonderful call from my youngest child this morning, Peter, in Minneapolis. He had an unexpected quick surgery this week. He thought it could be something much worse. And he is also preparing to see his son graduate from college and his daughter get married this summer. So he got through the surgery. It was really good. And he has a little pain, but he wanted to call me and tell me he was fine, and we talked. And it was a blessing to have that news this morning.
Wonderful.
I'm glad he's back. So I could have an announcement, even though it's premature by a couple weeks, and it does look pretty good, but Dennis and I will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. So it's the first in my family. I was a child bride. I was 12.
Any more celebrations? Any concerns? The only thing I can say, I did speak to Joel yesterday, and he's doing fine. He's home. His concerns are more about the COVID than the heart problems. So he's actually doing well. We hold in our heart all those who are having sad times, and we celebrate with all those who are celebrating joy. And I will be here this afternoon, and I can collect money, but I will do that, and I hope to really enjoy the film. This reading is a poem by Billy Collins, The Lanyard. The other day, I was ricocheting slowly off the blue walls of this room, moving as if underwater from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, when I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send me into the past more suddenly, a past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid long, thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift from my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, or what do they do with them? But that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breast, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted spoons of medicine to my lips, laid cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim. And I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. There are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing and a good education, and here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. And here, I wish to say to her now, is a small gift, not the worn truth, that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-tone lanyard from my hands, I was assured as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. And I want to thank my husband, Richard, who, when I was searching for a poem, mentioned this one. And when I found it and read it, I said, it's perfect. Peter Mayer is a singer-songwriter who's a Unitarian who you know very well because we sing his song, Blue Boat Home, so often. He has recently written a song called Little Heart, which is about parenting and how being a parent is like having your heart walk around outside your body. He created the song at Northwood UU in Texas, and we are going to watch him sing it.
Hey, here's one thing that you could do. Take out the heart inside of you. Give it arms and legs and the sweetest face. Then watch your heart crawl around. Try to stand up and then fall down while you are looking on, protective and afraid. And when your little heart turns 5, give it a hug and kiss goodbye. Watch it walk alone into a great big school, backpack nearly too big to carry, big kids like giants everywhere, and sit there helplessly as tears well up in you. Seems like a sensible thing to do. By then you may have some regrets that you let your heart out of your chest. But once you take it out, it never fits back in, because your heart grows and grows and learns things you don't even know. It spends less time with you to spend more time with friends. And even worse, they say you should prepare your heart to leave for good. Teach it how to live, make it on its own, until there finally comes a day when your heart moves away. You can only hear it on the telephone. May sound crazy, but it's so. Never think it's true. Your heart does not belong to you. You can hold it close, try to keep it safe. Sing your heart a lullaby, cheer it on, and when it's time, send it on its way. Who would ever think it's true? Your heart does not belong to you. You can hold it close, try to keep it safe. Sing your heart a lullaby, cheer it on, and when it's time, send it on its way. So here's one thing that you could do. Take out the heart inside of you, give it arms and legs, the sweetest face. Then watch your heart crawl around, try to stand up and then fall down. See it walking now, see it smile and wave.
That was lovely. I met Peter at a GA in Tennessee many years ago, and I love all of his music. And those of you who love Blue Boat now should really listen to him online. He's just absolutely wonderful. And Lisa will now play for you. when I was asked to do this, I said, yeah, I have a story I could tell. And then I couldn't find it. And then I finally found it, and I hadn't really looked at it in a long, long time. And I had written it down. And the thing about writing a story down is the words become too important. So the last couple of days I've been working with that story, and I almost felt yesterday that I was going to have to break my leg so I could say, oh, I can't do it. But finally I sat down with Richard and I just talked. And I remembered things about my mother and why I wrote this story. So the story is called Cut from the Same Cloth. When I think of my childhood and the pictures of my mother that come in my head, she always has a piece of cloth in her hands. All of my clothes were made by her when I was a child, and those are preserved in the linen finished photographs that were taken by my Uncle Donald of all of us who were born shortly after the war. They were hand-colored by my Aunt Ginny with her oils and a camel hair brush. There's the picture of me in the pink gingham romper with the white eyelet trim and the matching ribbons from my pigtails that now hangs on Richard's office wall. There's my favorite, which is me in a red plaid dress, sitting under a tinseled Christmas tree, sitting next to a toy piano. There are many pictures of me. As a matter of fact, my sister used to say, how come there are always pictures of you, but there are none of me? And I had to explain it's because Uncle Donald gave up the hobby by the time you were born. Later on, the pictures are much more casual. They're from our Kodak brownies that everybody had, and they're now in black and white, but the clothes were still made by my mother. They were mother-daughter dresses and another outfit for my little sister in a much more juvenile design, but the same fabric. My mother often had other pieces of cloth in her hand, the damask tablecloth that she lovingly washed and ironed after each Sunday dinner, where my father's family was always invited. He still had 4 siblings that were unmarried, and they spent a lot of time at my house. The curtains she made, the drapes she hung, the slipcovers that covered the furniture that I had never seen naked. These things were changed by the season. Cloth. The sheets that were hung on the line, and they were brought in full of sunshine and fresh air, that were folded later and waited to be put on the bed, waited their turn. My mother did all of these things in her laundry domestic crafts room, which was in the basement. Our basement was the same square footage as the house upstairs. It had been divided into sections. Half of it was the playroom, which was taken up mostly by a large ping pong table that my father made, which were hung on the wall, and on the other side it was painted with a special black paint, so it was a chalkboard. The other half was divided, one part for my father for his workshop, with his metal lathe and his thousands of screws and nuts and bolts and hammers and tools. And the other was my mother's. And it had all the domestic equipment. The little round washing machine that stood by the ceramic sink, where you had to pull the clothes out of the water and very carefully run them through the wringer so the water went into the ceramic sink and then drained out. Of course, later we had a much more modern washing machine and later still an electric dryer. There was the freezer down there where she had made meals to save for later. and always stored the turkey that my father got at Christmas from Grumman Aeronautics, which we saved for the following Thanksgiving. There was the garden vegetables that she froze, and the spaghetti sauce she had made from the tomatoes that everyone had, and the casseroles made of zucchini, because zucchini is something that I don't think you even need to plant, but if you have a garden, it appears. There was a closet down there where she kept the clothes that was in the wrong season, and there was a stove where she made jellies and jams, which were stored in a cabinet in the corner, which also had the equipment for making those products, where you could take things like the beach plums that we collected in September by the beach that we had gone to all summer, and collected those beach plums. And she made them into these quivering, sugared things that were in jars. And each time we needed a new jar, you went downstairs and got one out of the cabinet. If you held that jar up to the light, the ruby beams that came from the sun and hit the countertop were always the most beautiful color I had ever seen. We picked strawberries and made strawberry jam. We had the old ironing board that had been covered by an old sheet that had several scorch marks where you had forgotten to pick the iron up. It was just these wooden crisscross legs, and the iron sat there on its plate waiting to be plugged in so it could do its job. There was an electric mangle, which took those sheets and you ran them through the heated drum, and you could fold them in their dense little pillows to wait in the closet. And there was her sewing machine, which was hidden in a lovely mahogany cabinet with cabriole legs that only opened when she had a project. She would pull it up and the singer would come to the surface. She would gather her materials, which she had cut and pinned, and with her knees she would press against the control of the needle that would make those tiny, tiny little stitches in a straight line. My mother once told me that when she was in high school, she was given the assignment of making a men's shirt with French seams, which meant she sewed them 3 times each seam to get that perfect little rolled hem in them, and it was done by hand. I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't even imagine it now with one of those machines that if you put the right codes in, it'll do everything for you except buy the fabric. And she sewed, and there at her feet was a basket with scraps of fabric and bits of trim. And as I got older, I sat next to her at a little table with my plastic toy, manually operated Singer Jr. And I took those scraps of fabric and I sewed them together, and I remember making clothes for my dolls, or maybe my teddy bears. But in all probability, they were just scraps of fabric sewn together. When I was 5, my mother, who had been a nanny when she was younger, signed me up for dance class. She had fond memories of walking the children she minded to dance class, and she thought if her children could get anything, they would go to dance class. I was 5. I don't know if I have a memory of that first class or just the pictures of me in the pink satin outfit dressed as a cute little Eskimo with a marabou around the edges. I do remember, though, that there was one little boy in the class and his costume was blue satin, and that one little girl was so scared at the recital she peed on stage, and the rest of us spent the time hoping not to step in the wet spot. But the thing I remember most about my mother and sewing were costumes. Costumes for the ballet. we were signed up at the Swoboda School of Dance, which was actually 2 towns over. My mother had to drive us there. They had an excellent reputation. The 2 sisters, Victoria and Jocelyn Swoboda, had been dancers. There were faded pictures in a scrapbook and old yellow newspaper clippings. They had danced in Europe. They had danced in New York. And they and their mother, Mama Swoboda, who played the piano, taught us the dance. Victoria was the younger of the 2. She always wore a leotard that was kind of in a not quite their color, dusty rose, beige, ivory, mossy green. She always looked soft. She wore the leotards with the sides pulled way up to extend the look of her well-muscled legs, a look that has now gone to the ridiculous point with the thong bikini. She wore ivory net stockings, which gave her a kind of a scaly look close up, but from away, her legs looked soft, like you were seeing them in a fog and a memory. She taught the advanced students. Jocelyn, her older sister, taught the little kids. She was a much brighter figure than her sister. Although she wore white tights and a black leotard, she always had a huge paisley scarf that was in bright teals or rose or red or orange, yellow, colors that were vibrant that she tied either around her waist or across her shoulder. She was a little smaller, a little less round, and even though the sizes between the 2 of them were minimal and she was the elder, it was Victoria who filled the room. Mama played the piano and kept rhythm with even the most inept student, teaching them to hear the music in their soul and to love the dance. Mama wore a long woolen skirt no matter the season. But when you touched it, it was so light. The wool was of such fine quality. The softness made me want to climb in her lap. She carried a black ebony cane with a gold tip that tapped with each step she took. They had come from what I believed when I was a child, Russia, but came to realize later on that it was probably not Russia, but they had come before the war or slightly after the war from a country that had been home but no longer felt like it. My mother wanted us to take private lessons because the kids who took private lessons at the recital got to dance a solo. The recital that the Swobodas took great pride in. There were people who came who didn't even have kids who went to the school. It was well known. They would not allow their dancers to wear cheap costumes made of cardboard and crepe paper. We had costumes for the ballet. And in October, hung on the wall were hand-painted watercolor drawings of the costumes for each dance. And attached to them were scraps of fabric of what the costume would be made of. And the mothers would line up, and rolls of fabric and bolts of lame and sequins and velvet and satin were cut out allocated for each child to wear for the dance. Patterns were born. bought. Rhinestones were in envelopes. Sequins were everywhere. Marabou was cut into pieces. There were feathers of every color you could possibly imagine. And the mothers made costumes. My mother made costumes. For every little dying swan and dancing princess, there was a costume. For every wolf from Red Riding Hood, there was a costume. And the mothers who sat in the gallery waiting for their dancers to finish so they could take them to the next activity always had a bag full of chores. They were sewing ribbons on ballet shoes or making costumes. My mother always had a bag with her of bits of fabric that she was making into a costume. But now she wanted us to take private lessons. So she got a job. She got a job working Christmas at the new Abraham and Straus at the new suburban shopping center. And we got signed up for private lessons. And she was a success at it. And she was asked to stay and become a permanent employee. And she was a success at that. And she talked always about Abraham and Straus and her job. And she loved every minute of it. And now our clothes were no longer made by Mom. They had a label in them that said Abraham and Straus at a 40% discount. Now things changed. My mother no longer wore a house dress. She wore a two-piece suit or a sweater set. She wore a circle pin and pearls. They didn't just go bowling. They now had cocktail parties, and they knew different people, and they went everywhere, and my father became politically active. And my sister and I learned the dances, the ballet, the tap, the jazz, the acrobatics. And my mother made costumes. She took miles and miles of netting and made tutus that were both long and short. She covered corsets with sheets of sequins. She made lace bodices. She made a lame jacket with a velvet collar. She took these things to work with her, and she had lunch with her new friends, a scoop of cottage cheese, a needle and thread, and pieces of fabric. I once watched my mother make a buckram skirt which stands straight out, and she covered the bottom of it with 57 rows of 1-inch net ruffles. They were costumes. Eventually, I quit dancing school, and those costumes were in a closet somewhere, and there were always boxes and boxes of all kinds of sequins and spools of thread of every color, rhinestones and buttons. And I'm quite sure to this day, the people who now live in that house, which I always thought was slightly coated with a glitter and a sparkle, clean out an old closet and possibly find a sequin or an old feather. We took those boxes to find things for various projects, and the costumes were eventually kind of cannibalized for school plays or Halloween or fancy dress parties. I still have them in old movies and pictures. They will always be a memory to me. My mom finally became the manager of that Abraham and Straus, and then retired and took up golf. She became a snowbird here in Venice, but there were still boxes full of sequins and ribbons and thread. She still made things. She made pillows and curtains and slip covers. She made them for both of her houses. She made them for both of my sisters' houses. She made them for my house. And I often worked side by side with her, making curtains, covering an old chair. And even though we had our differences, I often thought that we were cut from the same cloth. When I cleaned out her houses when she was gone, I found many boxes full of sequins, rhinestones, spools of thread of every color, and memories. Thank you. Our closing hymn is number 338, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. I extinguish the chalice is extinguished. A poem by Tess Gallagher. I stop writing the poem to fold the clothes. No matter who lives or who dies, I'm still a woman. I'll always have plenty to do. I bring the arms of his shirt together. Nothing can stop our tenderness. I'll get back to being a woman, but for now there's a shirt, a giant shirt in my hands, and somewhere a small girl standing next to her mother, watching to see how it's done. Have a wonderful Mother's Day, and be kind to each other. And Lisa will play. Thank you very much.